Hello and welcome to part 2 in a series of videos that I'm putting out this week where I break down all the fights taking place this weekend at UFC on ESPN plus 14 from a betting perspective. Now I've already broken down 5 fights in part 1 of this video, which you can check out by clicking the link in the description below, and in today's video I will be breaking down another 4 fights. And also to say a big thank you to everyone that hit the like button and left a comment on part 1 of this series of videos. I will definitely be doing a live stream tomorrow unless something totally crazy happens. I promise you I will be doing a live stream. Now it probably won't be one of these crazy 3 or 4 hour long live streams like I've done in the past, but I should definitely be able to squeeze in 2 hours. So I'm going to Cardiff City's first home game of the season tomorrow against Luton Town, and as soon as I get home from that game, should be like 7:30, something like that, I will jump on and do a live stream and run, right up until 10 minutes before the event starts. So I will definitely be doing that tomorrow. And if I don't get part 3 of this series of videos out before the live stream, what I will do, I will talk about the remaining 4 fights in the live stream. So I will definitely cover all the fights this week. And if you super urgently want to know how I feel about the fight between Volkan Ozdemir and Ilir Latifi, if you go onto my YouTube channel, click the videos tab and search for the most recent card from UFC Stockholm, I did break that fight down in that video. You'll see a thumbnail with Latifi crying. I broke that fight down previously when the fight was scheduled for UFC Stockholm. Now I will be covering it again in part 3 or the live stream because a couple of things have changed since the last fight. But if you really want to get a general feel for how I feel about that matchup, go and check that video out. And also, please, if you like the content, go and check out a video I uploaded earlier on today. It is titled, "Do You Want to Be a Professional Gambler?" I highly recommend you check it out. I uploaded it this afternoon. I think you're going to find it very interesting. It's only 20 minutes long, so check it out. And if you like today's video, please hit the like button below and also subscribe. Now, before we get into talking about the fights in today's video, I want to make it very clear that in order to make a living betting on MMA, in order to have much more success than the average person in anything in life, you've got to approach things differently. You've got to approach things strategically and intelligently. And I have a plan for making money in August. Remember, everything I do is based on compound interest. And I try and give myself the best possible chance of making a profit or floating around break even every single week so that over time my profits can compound and grow into much larger amounts. So on last week's event, we made a really nice profit. You saw in part 1 we had 2 pretty big bets on that over 1.5 rounds in the Nchukwu Stozic fight, and also a big bet on Hakarast. And I'm pretty damn motherfucking confident that we are going to have 2 rock solid bets for UFC 241 next week. I'm also pretty damn confident I'm going to have at least 1 rock solid bet for the event in China 2 weeks after that, after the UFC break. So the point I'm trying to make is, this is a very difficult event for betting. The Shevchenko Carmouche card's a very difficult event for betting. And you have to be strategic in this game, especially if you're using compound interest to grow your money. So what I'm trying to say is we made a solid profit last weekend. I'm pretty confident we're going to make a solid profit next weekend. And then the event after that, I'm pretty confident we're going to make a profit on that too. So I need to see something really special on this card for me to pull the trigger, because what I don't want to do is put my money in a marginal position and roll the dice on a fighter that isn't particularly solid, risk taking a loss, which will then eat into future potential profits on upcoming cards or eating into our profits from last week. I'm very confident that August is going to be a very big month for me, and I don't want to jeopardize that by rolling the dice and betting on someone that probably isn't the most trustworthy on a card like this. So, I'm still researching this card, still got a few fights to research on this card. The odds are still moving as well, so I'm still keeping my eye on a few guys, but just want you to bear that in mind when you're watching this video. It is very difficult to make a living gambling. It is very difficult to make a profit gambling. You need to be strategic and intelligent in order to do so. That's the reason why I'm going to be passing on the majority of the fights where there is simply no value. Some people don't like it, and if you don't like it, plenty of other guys on YouTube you can go watch who'll wiki cap fights, give you picks, and talk a load of shit from memory without doing proper research, or looking at the implied probabilities and considering whether the bet actually makes sense mathematically according to those probabilities. So now that we've kind of got that out of the way, let's actually get into talking about some fights, because today's video is going to feature, a good number of fights which are very interesting to talk about from a betting perspective. But actually, as I've glanced down, I've got carried away, and I've just actually forgotten to mention the most important part of this video, like the best part of this video. And I want to say a massive, massive shout out to HLB Coma, who has designed literally the best goddamn, freaking thumbnail picture I've ever seen. He is one of my members. He sent this to me earlier on in my chat room. What an absolute fucking legend. Talk about attention to detail. He's literally copied Mike Perry's exact face tats. Although I'm not sure if he is kind of making fun of me as well, because obviously Mike Perry rocking the platinum tattoo. He's just giving me gold, gold's not as good as platinum, so maybe he's taking the piss a little bit. But thank you so much to HLB Coma. This is fucking amazing, man. I really appreciate it. And I know, man, as a fellow Photoshop user, quite a decent amount of effort has gone into this, mate. So I appreciate you taking the time to do that. It is fucking wicked. I really like it. And also, it saves me a job, because I don't have to design my own thumbnail for this video. So you saved me a good, 10-15 minutes work there, mate. I really appreciate it. You hooked me up big time. So thanks a lot, mate. I really appreciate it. I love the thumbnail. I think it's well funny. So anyway, yeah, HLB Coma, man. Absolute legend. He's a member on my website. Love talking during the chat room every day, mate. And yeah, let's get into talking about some fights then. So the first one that I want to get into is Humberto Bandenay against Luis Eduardo Garagorri. So Garagorri is making his UFC debut, and he is the only fighter from Uruguay on this card. So the crowd are going to get behind him in a big way. The crowd got behind him in a big way at the weigh-ins. And from what I've seen, from researching his past fights and researching Bandenay's past fights, stands a very, very legit shot of winning this matchup. Of course, we do always have to make the point that he is making his UFC debut. Fighters often underperform in their debut. A massive percentage of fighters lose in their debut, so perhaps competing under the bright lights of the UFC on the main card of an event in his home country, the first ever event in his home country, will be too much for him to handle. Maybe he will crumble under the pressure. Maybe that'll have a big impact on his performance. But, from what I've seen, he stands a decent chance of winning this. So let's jump in and take a look at him so you can kind of get an impression of what he brings to the table. So the first fight that I'm going to show you is from 4 or 5 months ago now, against Agustin Marquez from Frontera Fight 5. So we are going to pop this on. It says Vinicius Trindade. That can't be right. I was very well prepared. Let's check out the dates just to make sure. Frontera Fight 5. So it says Vinicius Trindade here, and he's called Augusto Marquez, but it is Frontera Fight 5. It does say Frontera Fight 5. Yeah, so let's just rock it. I mean, it's two different names, but I mean, the guy in the white shorts is definitely Garagorri. So, look at where he's fucking fighting, boys. He is literally fighting in someone's garage. So would not surprise me at all if the Tapology information is incorrect for this. Literally fighting in front of about 100 people in someone's garage. Looks like it might be a indoor car park or something. I'm not too sure what what this is, but you can see from the shorts that Garagorri's wearing, Muay Thai shorts, very clearly a striker, and very early on in this fight just a few moments ago you saw him sit down really hard on that right hook, and he's fighting out of the southpaw stance here, and and actually switches back to orthodox. So showing that he's got a bit of a background in striking here, knows what he's doing. You wouldn't tend to see inexperienced fighters switch stances like that with such fluidity, but hasn't really started to let his hands go too much yet, still finding his range. But very, very nice spinning back kick, as I say that, to knock his opponent down and catch him off guard. He was lulling his opponent to sleep there before uncorking the explosive spinning back kick, but then his opponent gains full control of his body, ties him up against the cage and starts working for a takedown. Very, very nice adjustment that Garagorri makes there, though. As his opponent went to drag him down, he capitalized on his opponent loosening his grip around the body, used that small opening to take the back and force his opponent to go to the ground. And now, in an effort to defend the rear naked choke, his opponent has now had to give up mount. And here we can see he is in a very, very bad position, and Garagorri starts to rain down vicious ground and pound with his mates in the background there cheering him on, possibly also the owner of the garage or whoever owns the building he's fighting in. I'm assuming they're in the audience, and again, gaining control of his opponent's back, working for the rear naked choke, but his opponent again gives up mount to defend the rear naked choke and absolutely smashing him from top position. Vicious elbows and power strikes. Very, very impressive how much force Garagorri is able to generate from ground and pound from top position there. Very, very nice stuff from Garagorri. So that fight was from back in March. This next one that I'm going to show you is, I mean, Jesus, man, none of these names are correct. These are different to my notes. So this was from Evento RXC2. In my notes it says he's fighting a guy called Cosio. This guy here. So this guy's name's Rafael Raul Palufo Cosio. And this fight was from back in 2017. So let's bust this on. Again, Garagorri wearing the same white shorts that he competed in his last fight. This fight doesn't last anywhere near as long. Coming out here in the southpaw stance, very, very nice. A bit of a different stance as well here. Looks completely different. I mean, catches opponent with well, it's over very quickly, isn't it? Clearly hurt his opponent there with a flurry of punches. His opponent was a little bit disorientated against the cage. Garagorri wasted no time taking his back and completing the rear naked choke submission. So in 2 consecutive fights there, we saw Garagorri take his opponent's back very, very, very quickly and was able to maintain position twice. Very nice. And now, the final fight that I want to show you. Again, I am seeing total chaos in the names. Here, the guy that he's fighting is called Daniel Baiano. But on Tapology, I do believe this guy's name is Daniel Dos Santos. Daniel Ferreira Dos Santos. One hell of an MMA record there. 6-15. 6 losses, 15 wins. This fight was from just over 2 years ago. April 2017. Still feels strange saying that. 2019 moving so fast. Almost at the end of 2019. That's fucking bonkers. But anyway, here we go. Daniel, whatever his name is, against Eduardo Garagorri. And again, Garagorri is in the white shorts. And again, comes out in the southpaw stance. And again, showing a different striking stance. He's kind of shown us a different striking stance in all 3 matchups that we've seen from him so far. Although here, his stance opening up was similar to his most recent fight in someone's garage. But again, don't know where this is taking place. This looks like it's in like a high school gym or an indoor leisure centre, or even an aircraft hangar, something like that. His opponent there picks Garagorri up, tosses him on the floor, but Garagorri gets his back tight to the cage, which is something that we saw. What was something that we saw in who did it in part 1? Part 1 video. Rodolfo Vieira's opponent, the Polish guy. I'm not even going to talk about it. I can't remember his name, but Vieira's opponent in part 1, in one of the videos, made great use of the cage and popping back to his feet. And Garagorri's done exactly the same thing there, which is very nice. Here we can see his opponent, though, did pull guard on a guillotine attempt, which almost always ends badly. Almost always ends up, with you on your back, giving up top position to your opponent, unless you are someone like Pedro Munoz. And from there, again, just like we saw in his recent fight, Garagorri is able to take mount on his opponent. And again, that most recent performance where he was raining down vicious ground and pounds, absolutely no fluke, because again, we can see him generate a tremendous amount of torque from top position and uncork bombs from top position, generating a lot of power. And again, his opponent forced to give up his back to escape mount. Garagorri will take that. He likes it. He'll work for the rear naked choke, softened his opponent up with a little bit of ground and pound from back position there, and eventually we know how this fight's going to end. Garagorri's either going to get the win by rear naked choke, or if he can't get that, he's going to smash his opponent with vicious ground and pound until the referee is forced to step in and stop it. But it looks like that might be sunk in there. Was the arm under the chin? I'm assuming it was. Crazy camera angles. And that is it. That is basically Luis Garagorri in a nutshell. And of course, we could go further back in his career and watch these fights from 2016 and 2015. Some of them are available online, but the records of the guys that he fought are pretty damn poor. And I mean, you know, these fights were so long ago that Garagorri would have improved so much since then. That we're not really going to learn too much from going back any further and watching those fights. But those fights were useful that I showed you because, you know, a lot of guys like to cap fights based on win-loss records and Wikipedia records. And, you know, Garagorri's record of 12-0 is a little bit misleading. As we've just seen, it appears that he's fought a pretty damn low level of opponent throughout his career in very, very strange locations. I mean, you know, you could even make the assumption that he's never even fought in an arena before. So, you know, to go from literally fighting in a high school gym in someone's garage to competing in a stadium on the main card of the first ever UFC event in your home country. I mean, he's the third fight on the he's the fight before the co-main event. You know, it's a lot of pressure for an inexperienced fighter that's only competed at a very low level before. It's definitely something we've got to pay attention to. But from what I've seen, I do think he stands a good chance of winning this fight. I mean, Humberto Bandenay is an explosive technical striker, but he does tend to become sloppier and more flat-footed as the fight goes on. He also doesn't pace himself very well and doesn't have the best fight IQ. So you look at a guy like Garagorri, clearly you can tell by the way that he moves, his fluidity in switching stances, the way he's able to generate an enormous amount of power in his elbows and punches from top position. Clearly this guy's got quite an extensive striking background. Also by the way that he takes his opponents back very quickly and he's able to maintain control of them while they're, you know, trying to transition and create scrambles to escape mount or back control. Clearly the way he's able to flow with them and maintain control indicates that he knows what he's doing on the ground. So from a technical point of view, I think he stands a great chance of beating Humberto Bandenay. If we look at the odds, we can see that you know that is reflected in his odds. He is a favourite at the moment. His current odds are around about 1.83, which is whoopsie doozy. 1.83, which is minus 120 for an implied probability of 55%. Compare that to Humberto Bandenay, who has average odds of around about 2.05, which is plus 105 for an implied probability of 49%. So there's no way that I would bet Bandenay in this fight, just because, I mean, I don't think he's as good as Garagorri. He's very dangerous, hits very hard, but from a technical point of view, I think Garagorri might have a slight edge everywhere, although with very limited footage to work from, who knows. And also he might underperform in a big way, competing under the bright lights of the UFC for the first ever time. But again, if we pop the odds on Garagorri back in, you know, 1.83 minus 120 for an implied probability of 55%, you know, I'm not going to bet on Garagorri either. This is his UFC debut. Massive percentage of fighters underperform in their UFC debut and lose. He's only ever fought in a really small locations against a low level of opponent. This is a perhaps not. Okay, you've got to say this is a big step up in competition for him, because I'm sure Bandenay would have blown through all those guys that we just saw Garagorri fight as well. But when I say it's a big step up for him, I mean in terms of the occasion, it's a big step up for him. You know, talking to media during fight week, staying in the fighter hotel, you know, be it having the media cover you during the weigh-ins, having the crowd there during weigh-ins, you know, a huge arena, you know, that comes with a lot of pressure. And can be exhausting for fighters, so you never know what type of impact that'll have on Garagorri. So I do favour him here, but I just agree with the odds. I don't think he should be much more than a favourite than this. Bandenay is dangerous, and there's a strong potential that Garagorri flakes out and can't deal with the pressure. So sorry to be boring, but it's an easy pass for me. August looks like it could be a great month for betting, and I'm not going to risk hard-earned cash by putting it in a marginal position on a fighter like Bandenay or Garagorri. Just doesn't appeal to me at all. So now we go on to the next fight that I want to talk about in today's video, and we're going to be talking about another debutant. We can see Rodrigo Vargas here in the black shorts. He is taking this fight on short notice, and it is also his debut. And remember that a massive percentage of fighters that make their debut lose, and an even bigger percentage of fighters lose when they make their debut on short notice. So already, before a punch is thrown, statistically Vargas has a massive mountain to climb. So let's take a look at him. I'm only going to play you one fight from Vargas, because this 15-minute fight here from Combate 10 does tell us quite a lot about him. And this fight that I'm going to be showing you is against a guy called Marco Antonio Elpidio. And this fight, he lost the split decision. I'm not going to show you this fight because it ended in 18 seconds. We can't learn anything from it. And I struggled to find this fight online. So this one here against Elpidio is kind of like the perfect fight to show you. So we will just open up here, just taking a look at what Vargas brings to the table. So primarily he is... What the fuck is going on with his bone here? Anyone know what's going on with his bone? I didn't even notice that the first time. The first time I watched him, that looks like some kind of fucked up injury. Could that be normal, guys? Let me know. Let me know, guys, if this is normal. I don't know what that is. I don't think I've ever really seen this before. But anyway, let me know if you know what that might be in the comment section below. But Vargas, as you can see, short, small, compact guy, very aggressive here. Opening, setting up his takedown with a nice combination there. But one of the things that will go against Vargas is that he is quite small, and you can see as he's able to take his opponent down, his opponent's able to immediately pop back up to his feet. But he does a really good job of maintaining control of his opponent's body here and dragging him back down. But again, there's nothing that he's doing wrong in terms of technique here. Vargas is using the correct technique, doing a very, very nice job of maintaining control of his opponent's body. But his opponent is able to just quickly stand back up because it's a physicality issue. Vargas is just too small in this position to impose his will on him, and we can see Vargas basically chip away from that position before his opponent is able to disengage, and they're back in kickboxing range where Vargas feels the most comfortable because he is primarily a striker. Here we can see him fighting out of the southpaw stance. But what's interesting is for such a small guy, he does have quite a flat-footed plodding style, not that fast. Doesn't really have the best footwork. As I say that, curse the commentator, he starts getting light on his feet. But trust me, if you watch more of his fights, he's quite flat-footed, which isn't great. I think it might hurt him in this fight, and we'll get into a little bit of that later on when we consider what the Silva brings to the table. But yeah, this is pretty much Vargas' style of striking. Fights out of the southpaw stance, quite flat-footed, not much footwork, not very mobile. Decent kickboxer. His kicks tend to be more dangerous than his hands. Powerful kicks, but doesn't throw a particularly high volume of strikes per round. Not particularly dangerous. Did score a very nice head kick knockout against Mike De La Torre in his last fight, but from what I've seen, not particularly dangerous. And there you can see where he's softening his opponent up with leg kicks. Very, very nice kicks, but his boxing isn't as impressive. So now, just a couple more things that I want to show you from Vargas, which I think could have an impact on how this fight plays out. I want to skip ahead to the second round because here we can see that it's Vargas initiating all the grappling in this first round. But let's take a look further on and see how he deals with his opponent trying to take him down, because Vargas does look like one of those guys that could be very good at being the hammer, not so good at being the nail. So this is about, approaching the midway mark of the second round. Here we see his opponent Elpidio is about to test the takedown defense the first time in the fight. So here we can see he is about to shoot in very, very deep on a nice double leg takedown on Vargas and easily puts him on his back. I mean, Vargas didn't even come close to stuffing that takedown there. Extremely easy takedown lands from Elpidio, easily puts him on his back, and just not great from Vargas, to be honest. Pretty poor takedown defense. Not sure if he got caught flat-footed and off guard, because his opponent up until that point hadn't shot many takedown attempts, so perhaps he wasn't expecting it. But definitely got taken down a little bit too easy there, a little bit easier than I would like to see, and he uses the cage to pop back up, but again his opponent easily gets another takedown, drags him to the ground. So this is just showing you the Vargas has got really, really poor takedown defense, and now that they're in the center of the cage, remember we spoke about this a lot in the fight between Vieira and the Polish guy that we watched in part 1. His opponent Elpidio is able to take half guard, and now that Vargas doesn't have his back tight to the cage, can't use the cage to stand back up, so he finds it much more difficult to work his way back to his feet now that his opponent's flattened his shoulders out in the middle of the cage. I mean, Vargas is doing a good job here of slowly edging his way back to the cage so he can use the cage to stand back up, but you can see, not great off his back and really poor takedown defense as well. So then if we skip ahead further into the video into round 3, and again we just get to see a little bit more grappling here. So Vargas here looking to get that takedown back, tying his opponent up against the cage and looking for his own takedown, but then they disengage, and here we see Elpidio in on a takedown, but this time Vargas does a great job of sprawling out of it, but his opponent's not ready to give up on it yet. Drives Vargas into the cage, but Vargas does a really good job of fighting hands here. You see on the left side, he is preventing his opponent from connecting his hands together here. Remember we spoke about this a lot again, it's something that Vieira does very well, is connecting his hands together against the cage, but Vargas is making it difficult for Elpidio to do that because he won't let Elpidio get his right arm free. He keeps fighting hands to prevent him from doing that. But this is just a scrappy grappling exchange against the cage, and eventually Vargas decides to give up on it and go back to the center of the cage. But his opponent Elpidio is not ready to give up on it, and why should he be after he was able to take Vargas down so easily in round 2? Obviously he's going to shoot another takedown, and this time as he shoots that very, very nice double leg takedown, notice here Vargas isn't able to get underhooks in play quickly enough, so his opponent's able to drive him into the cage, and look what he's done. He's been able to connect his hands together around the hips of Vargas, and because he's got his hands connected together, he's easily going to be able to complete this takedown. There's nothing Vargas can do about it, and what happens? Well, we see Elpidio easily put him on his back, and immediately we see Vargas go to full guard instead of trying to pop back up quickly to his feet by using the cage to stand back up. So we can see there Vargas has pretty poor takedown defense, not the best off his back either, and I think that could be pretty significant here because Alex de Silva is a very strong wrestler. Now before you go to your comments, and you start typing that he isn't a strong wrestler because he got grapple fucked by Kovalevich. You've watched that fight and you're going to call me out for saying De Silva's a strong wrestler. I completely agree with you. He did get grapple fucked against Kovalevich, or whatever the fuck his name is. But remember, this fight took place in April 2017. It was 2 years ago. And Alex de Silva is the youngest fighter on the card. He's only 23 years old. So when this fight took place, he would have only been 21 years old. And trust me, he has improved a hell of a lot since then. If you go and watch his last fight, his UFC debut against Alexander Yakovlev, his wrestling and ground game looked absolutely amazing in this fight until he gassed out in round 2. Very, very, very nice. So Alex de Silva is a strong grappler. I do believe that if he uses his grappling in this fight, he will absolutely dominate Vargas. And one of the reasons why I also give De Silva another advantage here is because he's just much bigger. Here we can see Vargas on the left, De Silva on the right, and we can just see De Silva absolutely towering over Vargas. Absolutely huge size advantage, and size really matters in MMA, particularly in grappling. And we know from past fights that De Silva's got the technical advantage when it comes to grappling, and with him having the size advantage as well, this is just going to be an absolute nightmare for Vargas. Very, very tough stylistic matchup for him, and I do actually believe Alex De Silva's got an advantage when it comes to striking everywhere. So I believe De Silva should win this fight everywhere. I believe he's significantly better than Vargas everywhere, but unfortunately that is baked into the odds. He is one of the biggest favourites on the card. We can see it here. I mean, these odds would be very nice at 5 times, 2.15 plus 115, but unfortunately those odds are a mistake. The average odds that you will get on De Silva, the best odds you can find on De Silva, is currently 1.36, which is minus 278 for an implied probability of 74%. I mean, if he was 2.15, I would bet the fucking house on it, but he is 1.36 everywhere. So at an implied probability of 74%, that's a big price to pay. You've almost got to give him an 80% chance of winning this fight in order to gain any value there. And he straight up quit once he got tired in his last fight against Alexander Yakovlev. And just as a general rule, I can't bet on guys as heavy favourites when they've got the quit in them. It's not smart, because you have to win. If you place 3 of these bets and one of them loses, you're at a loss. If you bet 4 of these bets and one of them loses, you're at break even. You need to win 5 of these bets to get into a substantial profit or a significant profit because of these odds, and it's just not worth putting your money in a marginal position like that. You know, in order for me to bet a fighter at these odds, they have to be excellent everywhere. There has to be no weaknesses. They have to be like Hakarast, have an excellent stylistic matchup, cardio for days, disciplined, smart, good fight IQ, great technique everywhere, good chin. They've got to be the total package, and at 23 years old, De Silva's not the total package yet, so it's an easy pass for me. Again, I know it's boring, but you know, if you don't like it, go watch someone else. The next fight that I want to talk about in today's video is Enrique Barzola against Bobby Moffett. So Enrique Barzola is probably, I would say, Barzola is the closest guy that I have come to betting on this event. He was one of the first names that jumped out at me, and I really felt like he could have been a solid bet this weekend. I mean, the first thing that jumps out at me is obviously he's from Peru, so he's got a lot of experience competing in South America, which will definitely help. Obviously, you know, the flights can be quite difficult to get to some of the locations in South America. Different time zone, different weather system, different humidity, different altitude. It's going to be an advantage for these South Americans going to a country like Uruguay and competing, compared to someone like Bobby Moffett that doesn't have a lot of experience competing outside of the United States. Also, as you can see in the profile picture here, Enrique Barzola does train at American Top Team, which is one of the best MMA gyms in the world, so he's going to be making big improvements from fight to fight. And there is a lot to like about him here. You know, he's got excellent cardio. I believe he has an advantage over Bobby Moffett when it comes to striking. He's got a great chin. He's very tough. Fights at a high pace. And both guys are primarily grapplers, and Barzola is a very, very strong wrestler. You know, we know he can fight at a high pace for 3 rounds. And that could be a significant factor in this fight, because Bobby Moffett does slow down as the fight progresses, and he does become sloppier as the fight progresses. But there are, unfortunately, a few issues with Enrique Barzola. The first issue with him is that, again, size matters in MMA, especially when it comes to grappling. And there's a big size difference here. Again, we can see Bobby Moffett, you know, just a bigger man than Barzola. You can just see his overall size, his overall stature, just a bigger man than Barzola. Obviously, the size difference isn't as big as in the De Silva versus Vargas fight, but definitely a size advantage there for Moffett. And also another thing, there's no doubt in my mind that the Bobby Moffett is the more technical grappler. He is very dangerous on the ground, you know, nasty submissions, unorthodox submissions. And that is quite a big concern in this matchup, because we've never really seen Barzola fight a grappler before. You know, if we look back through his record, you know, Aguilar's a boxer, Brandon Davis a Muay Thai fighter, Bazete's a bit of everything, but would never have had the wrestling to put Barzola in a bad position. You know, Benitez is a kickboxer. Avilar's a BJJ guy without any wrestling to take Barzola to positions where he may struggle. You know, Botniak's a kickboxer, etc., etc., etc. So we've never seen Barzola fight a grappler, a wrestler. We've never seen his submission defense tested. We've never seen him fight a guy who can create scrambles and mix it up with him in grappling positions and potentially put him in some bad positions. And Bobby Moffett could be that guy. Now, another important detail to pay attention to here is that Barzola is a strong wrestler, but he does everything with power, athleticism and explosion. He doesn't use the correct technique. He's quite sloppy when it comes to technique, and he makes up for that with hustle. But Barzola is a hustler, whereas Bobby Moffett is a technician, and quite often when you get a hustler fight a technician, well, the technician comes out on top and the hustler gets found out and struggles quite badly. So that's another thing to pay attention to here. But I do favour Barzola. I think that he's got the advantage when it comes to striking. I think that there's a good chance Bobby Moffett will slow down because he doesn't have a lot of experience fighting outside the United States, and, you know, Barzola could push a high pace and cause him to gas out. And in grappling exchanges, you know, Barzola might just out-hustle him and outwork him just by being fitter, stronger, hungrier, more athletic and having a better gas tank over 5 rounds. So I do lean Barzola here, but I don't think I lean towards him heavily enough to bet him as a favourite. You know, his current average odds are around about 1.80, which is minus 125 for an implied probability of 56%. And if we look at the odds on Bobby Moffett, he is currently around about a 2.05 favourite, which is plus 105 for an implied probability of 49%. You know, I wouldn't bet Moffett here. I like Barzola in this fight, but at the same time, if you bet Barzola at odds of 1.80 minus 125, I don't think you're getting a good deal here. It's only a marginal position you'd be putting your money in. It would be irresponsible to bet Barzola against a dangerous technical grappler when we've never seen him fight a technical grappler, a strong wrestler in the past. So, you know, it's a pass from me. Bobby Moffett isn't a strong wrestler. His offensive wrestling's quite sloppy, but he could catch Barzola in a scramble and put him in some bad positions. Very, very sneaky, very, very quick at locking in submissions. We don't know what Barzola's submission defense is like, so it's an easy pass. Just chill. Keep your money, boys. Keep your money. Don't put it in harm's way. And now, the next fight that I want to talk about, the final fight that I want to talk about in today's video, is Vicente Luque against Mike Platinum Perry. And in the last video I said that Alexei Kunchenko was the first name that jumped out at me when I began researching this card, and Vicente Luque was the second name that jumped out at me. I really felt like Vicente Luque would be one of my biggest bets this weekend. I felt he would be a really, really good bet. I was planning to go huge on Vicente Luque. I was playing a big 5-unit bet on Luque this weekend. But again, this is one of those fights where when I started to do fight research, completely changed my mind on how I thought the fight would play out. And now, definitely don't like Luque as much for the reasons that I will discuss in this video. So this is one of the reasons, you know, another one of the fights why research is so important. You know, working from hazy memories, if I was just working from memory, I would have gone huge on Luque this week, but after doing research, I wouldn't even bet him. And that's why research is so important, going back and watching past fights so you don't end up putting your money in marginal decisions or putting your money in bad positions. So, despite everything I've just said, make absolutely no mistake about it that this is a very easy fight for Vicente Luque. I think he will win. This is an easy fight for Luque. But, and there is a but with pretty much every fight I've talked about so far in these videos, but you get cards like this sometimes, right? There is definitely a bet here. And the bet here is that this is an easy fight because all Luque needs to do in order to win is take Perry down and dominate him on the ground. You know, Vicente has got strong offensive wrestling, very, very high level Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, and we know that Mike Perry's takedown defense isn't the best and his ground game is at a very low level. If Vicente Luque wants to pick up an easy paycheck on Saturday night, he will come out, he will take Perry down and he will dominate him on the ground. But we could say this about so many of Luque's past fights. I mean, let's look at his record. Bryan Barberena, no takedown defense. Very, very low level ground game. What did Luque do? Well, Luque tried to get into a kickboxing match with Barberena and almost got knocked out in the first round. Jalen Turner, very bad takedown defense, low level ground game. Dangerous striker though, vicious knockout power. What did Luque do? Try and beat him in a kickboxing match, and he did. Nico Price, we've seen in Nico Price's last 2 fights that his takedown defense is non-existent. This guy has no takedown defense, no ground game. Jeff Neal and Tim Means mounted him like he'd never even taken a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu class. What does Luque do? Well, instead of just taking him down and dominating him on the ground, gets into a kickboxing match. Again, very dangerous. We know how hard Nico Price hits. Yes, Luque ended up winning the fight by submission, but after a whole load of kickboxing where he could have got himself into trouble. And that's the huge issue that I have with Luque here, and why he's such a difficult fight to bet on when he's a big favourite. It's because he has the skills to beat almost everyone that he fights. He's amazing. Skill for skill, he's probably easily top 10 best welterweights in the world, and he'd caused the top 5 welterweights some problems as well. A few of the top 5 welterweights he caused some issues. But my problem with him here is that I don't trust him to take the path of least resistance. I don't trust him to take the easiest path to victory. It's unlikely this dude will try and take Perry down and control him on the ground. He's probably going to get into a kickboxing match with Perry, and if he does that, it's a huge mistake because Perry's no picnic standing. Brian Barberena doesn't really have any power in his hands at all. And if we look at Barberena's record, bit of a decision machine. He got finished there, got a knockout there, but aside from that, plenty of fights gone the distance. And he got finished there, so that you could count these fights as going the distance as well. Barberena's not that dangerous standing. He almost knocked Luque out in round 1. So if Barberena can almost knock Perry out, gotta stop saying Perry. If Barberena can almost knock Luque out, you bet your ass Perry can, because Perry hits very hard. He is improving from fight to fight. He's becoming more and more technical. He's throwing an ever more diverse range of strikes. And if Luque tries to get into a kickboxing match with Perry, do think the fight will be close and competitive. We know Perry has sorted his cardio issues out. His cardio's looked great over the last couple of years. He's got a granite chin. Excellent chin. Very, very, very tough. He's the kind of guy that loves getting into a war. Very dangerous. Legit KO power in every strike. So if this fight does end up staying standing, it's a fight where I do give Luque the advantage because he's more technical than Perry. He throws a higher range, a wider range of strikes. But I wouldn't fucking bet him at these odds, man. I mean, if we look at the odds, so Luque at the moment currently around about average odds, I'd call it 1.45. Minus 222 for an implied probability of 70%. So to get any value on Luque here at all, you've got to give him a 75% chance of winning. And if you give Luque a 75% chance of winning this fight, you're a moron. You are a moron, because if Luque got into a kickboxing match with Barberena and almost got KO'd by pillow fists Barberena, what the fuck do you think Mike Perry might be able to do to him? What do you think Mike Perry might be able to do to him? You've got to give Mike Perry better than a 1 in 4 chance of winning this fight, based on past performances, based on the fact that Luque, against very dangerous opponents like Nico Price and Jalen Turner, consistently tries to outstrike opponents instead of taking them down and dominating them. And that's what makes this a complicated fight for betting, because you can't bet on Mike Perry, because if Luque at any point in the fight does decide to take him down, Perry is totally screwed. So you can't bet Perry. You can't bet on a fighter that is at that big of a disadvantage in a specific area that the fight could take place. You can't bet on anyone at these odds, because if we look at the odds, average odds around 2.80, plus 180, implied probability of 36%. To give Perry, to gain any value on Perry as a big underdog, you really got to cap him at like 44 to 45%. And I can't get to that percent based on how big of a disadvantage he will be at if this fight goes to the ground. But at the same time, we look at the odds on Luque. I'm not rushing out to bet Luque, capping him at 75%. You are out of your goddamn mind based on past performances if you think Luque has a 75% chance of beating Mike Perry. So this is one of those really annoying fights where I do think Vicente Luque is going to win. I really do. But mathematically, it's a bad bet. So it's got to be a pass, which is very frustrating because I love Luque. I think he's brilliant. I think he's a potential future world champion. No, he is only 27 years old. He's making huge improvements. But unfortunately, I feel that Luque is stubborn. And I feel that Luque might be one of those guys that has to take a few really bad losses in order to evolve and reach his potential. I feel like he might need to get served a couple slices of humble pie before he can actually reach his potential, because he has all the technical ability in the world to compete against the best fighters in the world. His problem is that his tactics, fight IQ and game planning isn't there yet, because he always makes life difficult for himself. And that's why, for me, this is a very easy pass at these odds. And who knows, man, maybe Mike Perry will be one of those guys to serve him up some humble pie this weekend. Might happen. So anyway, that is it for today's video, guys. Thank you once again to HLB Comma for the boss thumbnail picture. I absolutely love it, mate. Please hit the like button below if you liked the video, guys, and also subscribe. And I'll be back tomorrow with part 3 and a live stream, or a live stream including part 3. Take care, everyone. Love you guys. Good night, and I will speak to you